Hello, people. My name is Samantha. For those that do not know me, I'm one of the local artists in my area, and I love creating shit. So I figured I would teach you guys one of my methods in regards to paint pours. This is a paint pour pull, and you'll get to see two different ways that I mix the paints together as well, um, which I'm getting ready to show you guys now, making sure all of my paint has the things off of them, and it doesn't, because I just recently got some more paint. So anyway, what we're going to be doing today is a paint pour pull. Once I can find my X-Acto to open this up with. There we go. Ew. Paint everywhere. So with art in general, Amber, as you know, it's a messy process, or it can be very messy. And be prepared to waste paint. Be prepared to waste paint. Because that's what we do as artists. We waste a lot of paint. There is no perfect way of doing it. So I'm actually going to push the video part down so you guys can kind of see. So you'll see that I have 10 cups here. 10? No, 12. 12 cups here. And there's a reason for it. No, you're not doing that many colors. You can do as many as you want, but I'm doing this in two different ways. One mixture is going to be with flow. Another mixture is going to be with water. So what I'm doing right now is I'm putting my paint in a cup, about yay much. So the way that we're going to mix this is with the flow, we're going to do a 1:1 ratio. And with the water, it's going to be about 55% paint, 45% water. So you want to have more paint than you do water whenever you're using a water for a thinner. Now, depending on what kind of look you're trying to get, will depend on what kind of medium you use. Now, water will give you all of those cool pop marks and fun little effects. Flow can do the same thing if you add different things like silicone, or you can even add a little bit of water to the mix to get pop marks and things like that in it. When you're putting your paint together, typically what I do is a mound effect. So I take and I mound it in the middle of the cup, like so, and it will thin itself out as it spreads. That gives me a better idea as to how much paint I've actually used or I'm going to be using. So before doing something like this, you want to choose the colors, obviously, to kind of figure out what it is you want to do. And I chose some fall colors for today just because fall is one of my favorite times of the year. And I know that these colors go really, really well together. You can use different types of paint, just plain acrylic, matte acrylic paint. You can use metallics. You can use some that has glitter in it. But just keep in mind, whenever you're doing this and you're using these different types of paint, your mixtures are going to have to be ever so slightly different. So this right here is a matte finished brushed metal. So it kind of falls into the family of metallic, but we're going to do the ratio of that one a little bit differently with the mixtures. So on this side, I have my waters that I'm going to be mixing. This one right here is going to have flow. So I always put my flow in, like, this is just a condiment bottle, you guys. This is like super simple. You can get it for like 98 cents at like Walmart or something like that. What I do is I put it in here because it's easier to pour from this than it is from a giant gallon thing like this. And I always get my stuff into gallons because I do this so often. So it's more cost effective for me to get big gallon ones like that. So to give you guys an idea of how much to put into this. So here's our yellow paint for the flow. It's got about yay much up to the paint in it, okay? We're going to do a half and half mix. So I'm going to put enough flow in here to raise this up towards more half and half, okay? I'm going to do that for each one of these colors, doing a half and half mix. And you're adding enough flow to raise it up. And to kind of help thin it out. That's what this flow is for. This flow, so I use Floetrol. It's a pouring medium that helps thin out the paint. So it moves easier. When you're doing paint pours, you want the paint to be able to move around. So here's the metallic color. As you can see, I didn't use that much in there. So with this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little bit more flow in here than I am paint. So the opposite mixture for the metallic color is what I'm going to do. So it is going to be a 45 paint, 55 mixture. And that is for our flow. Now for the water, no matter what kind of color you're using, no matter what kind of metallic or normal matte, you want to do a 55% acrylic, 55% paint, or and 45% water. So I have some water here. We're going to pour this into the cup. And if you need to add more paint to it because you feel like you've added a little bit too much water, that's fine. You can do that too. But the water is actually going to give it more of a pop effect whenever doing it. And if you have questions while we're doing this, please, by all means, go ahead and unmute, ask your questions. Add in anything that you want to it in regards to your own experiences with it and what you have found. Now, I use craft sticks. They're popsicle sticks, friends. They're popsicle sticks. That's exactly what they are. They are popsicle sticks. I use popsicle sticks to mix my colors because it's easier. And I'm using one for each one because I don't want to mix the flow with the white and you don't want to mix the colors together yet. So with this, what we're going to do is we're going to just take the popsicle stick and we're going to mix the colors really, really well. And you're wanting to try and keep the color as much as possible. And if it seems a little too liquidy, add a little bit more of the paint color that you have. But make sure you've mixed it really, really, really well. Okay.
You don't have the tomato plant that's
just pop it back into the garden bed. So we're going to mix all of these up. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. How are you doing, Miss Amber? And also thank you for joining me today.
I'm good. And I got Jake over here taking notes for me.
Hi, Jake.
Hi.
And this is being recorded, so it'll be put up on my YouTube so you can watch it later on as well. If you miss anything.
Crap. I just put Floetrol in the wrong color. You can't mix Floetrol with like something you mix water with, right?
No, you can. You're just, so one of the things that I have found in my own little escapade with art, with doing paint pours like this, you can 100% mix them. What the water is going to do a lot of times is it's going to add things like, you know, those pop marks every so often that you get, the little bubble looking things, where it gives it more.
Yeah, the cells.
So yes, the cells. So the water is going to just add more cells to that color if you mix it with flow. That's all it's going to do.
That's what I like.
You can get those cell pops and stuff like that, but you can get them a lot more when you mix with water. So like this one right here, it's still a little thick for what I'm wanting. So I'm going to add some more flow to it again. Just to kind of thin it out a little bit more. So this is a thicker paint. So depending upon the thickness of the paint is how much flow you're going to add as well. And sometimes you're going to need more of a mixture of it. Sometimes you're going to need like a 1 part color and 2 parts flow, which is what I had to do with the red just now. And it's perfectly okay to do that too. And sometimes the flow, because it is a white type of color, it might change the colors of your paint. Like this one right here, it turned out, it was a darker magenta, now it's a little bit lighter. And if that happens, you can also adjust the colors by adding something else to it, like say black, for instance. If you want it to be a darker magenta, you can add black to it to give it that darker color. Or you can just add more paint to it. That's good. We're going to do the brown.
Sorry, Sam, what did you just say about if you wanted to get it back to the darker, you put just more color?
Something to either more color of it, the same color back to it, or you can add like a little bit of black or a darker hue of that color.
Oh, gotcha.
Take a look at a color wheel and see which ones contrast which and see which ones complement each other. Doing that, that'll help you figure out a good color to add to it to either make it darker, more vibrant, how you can mix them, so on and so forth. So adding the metallic color, let me show you on this one. I did more flow with the metallic color because metallics tend to be a little bit thicker in general because of the type of paint that it is and the addition to the paint that makes it metallic looking. So I added more flow to this. And because of that, now it's that beautiful, see how much it's dripping? That's the kind of flow that we're wanting for it, is this drip effect right here whenever we're doing it. So now we're going to mix these colors with water. And sometimes, like I said, if you added water into your stuff and it seems too liquidy, add more paint. Because literally all you got to do is just add more paint.
And now when we're pull this off.
That's fine, buddy. That's fine. Just
Where
set
do
it
you
off to
want
the side. Put it in the kitchen.
It's very hot. Like, oh, okay. Yeah.
And sometimes that's going to happen when you're doing water mixtures, especially with the metallic colors, because with the metallic colors, it almost turns it into like a pure gold liquid, like a liquid gold. So when I go to use this color, I'm only going to use a little bit in the actual pour itself because you don't want it to be too liquidy. When I'm using water, I always end up adding more paint to it. But the thicker the paint, a lot of times the more water you want to add to it. You just have to be careful how much water you add in. A little bit at a time starting out, and then you can increase it as you go. This one, I'm wanting it to be a little bit more thinner because I want more pop marks in it. So that's why I'm doing it thinner versus thicker. Like I will add more paint into it just to give it more of a pop of color with those colors. But I'm not too worried about the viscosity of it.
And Sam, to get the cells or the pop marks, do you have to add heat all the time, or does the water create it?
Sometimes they'll just pop on their own and do their own thing. As you're pouring it and moving the paint around, it'll do it on its own a lot of times. But you can 100% use heat, like a little small torch, in order to do that. It varies on what you have. You can also just use air. So using a straw and blowing into the paint itself will help create pop marks as well. So it literally depends upon how you want it to pop up and how you want it to look. Heat is a great activator for that though. And so if you want to use heat, you can use heat. If not, then no. I personally like using a combination of both heat and the air because it gives two different types of pop mark looks to it.
Oh, really?
But heat will also help with thinning out the paint a little bit more, or even setting it some too.
Yeah, I noticed that it dries it really fast sometimes if you're not careful.
Does. So if there's like an area you want to make sure that it stays pretty dry or stays exactly like it is, hit it with a little torch. You can even put some glue on it. You can use a blow dryer to move paint around, things like that as well, which I'll do that in some future classes, show you guys how to use a blow dryer for some paint pours. And kind of go from there in regards to different techniques you guys can use with these.
And I was going to ask, that red cup that's cut in half,
Yes.
is that what you're going to be pouring into?
Yes. So whenever I go to, so whenever when I'm done mixing these, I'll show you guys how I do this, because this is what you guys are gonna be doing too. Remember, you want to have a base color on the painting itself, or on the canvas itself, or whatever it is that you're pouring the paint onto, whether it's canvas, wood, doesn't matter. You want to have a base of some sort on there. That way it helps the paint move a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be super thick. It doesn't have to be like super big or anything like that. Just something to give it some sort of purchase, if that makes sense. Once you have that base on, then at that point, that's when you're going to add the cup onto it, which I'll show you. And then it will help with getting all of the paint on there and moving it around. So the paint cup, or the cup that I have that's cut in half like this, I have it for a reason, because the paint for pools is you're pouring the paint into a cup type thing, and then you're going to be pulling it up. You're not going to move the cup too much, but you're going to be pulling it up. Okay. So from this part, I'm going to go ahead and move these so they're out of the way. And the first one we're going to do is we're going to do the flow. I'm going to show you guys how to do the flow one. So I'm going to use black for a background for this, because I want the colors to pop out a little bit more than with the white. And I also like darker things. So personally, I'm going to use black as my base for both of these. Now the black has flow in it. And I've pre-mixed it already, so I don't have to worry about it. I always have some pre-mixed and ready to go. And what I do is I just add it on like this, all throughout it. And then I just take my fingers, my hand, and move the paint around all the way to the edges. Now I have my canvas propped up on some cups over the thing, so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the paint catcher, as I like to call it, because I don't use proper terms, because fuck that shit, I'm weird. And most artists like yelling at me for that, and they can yell at me all they want. So there's our base, right? Wipe my hands off real quick. So once you've got your base on here, you're going to take the cup, you're going to put it in the middle. All right. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to add a little bit more of your black into the bottom. Okay. Because what we're going to do is we're creating movement and layering with this. So the first color I'm going to add is yellow. And I'm going to do this in layers. Add some yellow. I'm going to add orange. And you can layer your colors however you want to. Whatever feels good for you, that you like. I'm adding some more black. Add this red. More black. Like I said, with paint pours and art in general, you waste a lot of paint, and that's okay. That's part of the joy of the process. Magenta. I'm gonna add brown. Very light brown that I have. Black. And then the gold. Now you can add more color into this if you would like. to get some more layering. Completely up to you if you want to add some more. I am going to add more red, add the rest of this red. Now, pretty much what this is going to do is almost fill your cup, depending on how much paint you made. And as you can see, the cup's already starting to kind of move around a little bit. And it's starting to pull these colors up because of the weight of paint. So I'm going to push it down a little bit so it stops moving. I'm going to add a little bit more color as I go. I'm going to try and use all of these colors. And you can see the paint starting to kind of come out a little bit through here. You see how it's moving again? Just push it down. Add in some more black. Add in the rest of this gold that I have. And then I'm going to add some more black. Okay. As you can see, there's already paint coming out the sides. Okay. That's what we want. So it's starting to move on its own. So I'm going to push the cup down again. Kind of let it do its thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the cup up on one side and move it and push it down. Very slowly. I'm going to keep lifting it and then putting it down. Lifting. This is going to create different types of textures and effects within it as you do this. Pick it up and move it, put it down. And when you feel like you're done, you can just pick the cup up. And this is what it looks like now. Okay. So what you can do from here is you can take the painting and you can move it around. There we go. So we're just kind of moving the paint around at this point. This is going to make a pretty cool effect. So this is what it looks like right now. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add some little effects by using a straw to move the paint around. Okay. I got these metal straws. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them pretty much anywhere. But see where all this black is? There is color underneath here. So see that? Every so often, you're going to want to kind of like push, like flick your straw out because spit, friends, spit. You see the feathering effect is giving it a little bit? What this is doing is moving that paint around some. Giving it different textures, different looks, things like that. So now I kind of got what I want in regards to feathering it out with the straw. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it a little bit more movement. I'm going to move this color around a little bit more by picking it up and allowing paint to just kind of drip off the edges of it. This will also help thin it out a little bit so your canvas isn't so heavy. And then what I'm going to do now that I've done this and brought more of the colors forward, I'll use the straw again to create some different fun effects on here. And see all the paint that's just kind of pouring off. Now with paint pours, there's a lot of fun things you can do with them. You can leave them as they are. Once they dry, you can add things onto it, like different detailing and stuff like that. One of the things I like to do is I like adding stones or different pieces of nature onto it. I will do detailing on them as well. It just kind of depends on what kind of feel I'm going for. So I've got that done now. So I'm going to take the straw again. Now, different techniques and like using the straw can create some like splatter effects around the areas that you're doing things. So just have some fun with it and see what feels good, see what looks fun for you, see what you like in regards to designs and how you want to do it. And just get creative. So I'm going to switch out my gloves real quick, because one of the things I'm going to do with this one in particular is I'm going to use some tools to bring out some of the designs on here. So I'm using a little spatula like this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of move the paint around. just to kind of give it some fun little designs here and there. And I'm wiping it off each time I do, because depending on what kind of look you're going for, will depend upon what you want to do, if you want to keep the paint on there or if you don't. So this part, what I'm wanting to do is just move the paint around a bit, because I don't want the colors to mix too much more. So I'm wiping it off each time. And doing things like this can also, depending on how you pull the paint through, this right here is giving this side a bit of a fire effect with how the colors are moving and the directions they're going. So I'm going to do the same thing kind of on this side, but I'm not going to wipe it off, except for every so often. And you can go in different directions with stuff as well. And again, it just kind of depends on how it is you're wanting to do things, how it is you're wanting to bring those colors forward. And remember, this can get messy, like super messy. So this one's done. I'm not going to do anything else to it. I've got all the little designs and stuff like that that I want on it, all done. Now with this other one, I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to actually do white for the background instead of black. This one right here has the water mixed into it. I'm going to grab some more gloves. And we're going to add white onto there. And keep in mind, we're using the same colors. They're just in a different type of medium. And we're going to use white as the background instead of black. Have any questions so far?
No, good over here. I realized I didn't make it thin enough, so it only, ran for a little bit and then it kind of stops, but I used a tool to move it around and make cool designs. So,
Yeah.
And I think that this water's gonna be a lot runnier, so.
Oh yeah, the water will definitely be a little bit runnier depending on how you did it. Like mine is going to be runny. I did mine runny on purpose though, because I want that run effect with mine. So I'm going to add this on here again. We're going to add a little bit more water, or not water, white in the middle. And now we're going to add a little bit of each color. We're not going to put too much of each color in there because it is so thin. And white and gold. I'm going to add a little bit of, or white, gold, and then brown. I'm going to add a little bit of white onto that. I'm going to add a little bit of magenta. And I'm trying to do them right in the middle. And sometimes because of the mixtures, it will move in really random, weird ways into this cup. And that's perfectly okay. I'm going to add this red. Add a smidge of black into the middle of that. Some orange. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit watery because that's what I was going for. Okay. Some more white. And then some yellow. And I mix as I'm pouring, or just before I pour too.
Little girl hanging out with.
Yes, she is. I'm going to add a little bit more white onto that now. And like I said, as this cup fills up with color, it'll slowly start pouring out the sides as you go. I'm going to add some more gold to this. And then some brown. See how it's starting to pour out the sides? And the water gives it more of that, those pop texture marks. So this one, I'm actually going to pour the rest of the red into it, and then I'm not going to pour any other colors in here. Decide maybe some blacks, maybe some whites. I want this one to have more red in it than the other colors. So now it's starting to pour out, and you can already kind of see how it is doing different types of pop marks. Do you see the difference between how it's pouring out of this one versus that one with the water and the flow? I'm going to lift this cup a little bit. Put it back down. Let that paint kind of move around a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of white to the edges. Add a little bit more. Fill it up. And sometimes this can be a little bit of a slower process to do it, but the end result is super cool. Lift it up and move it. Yeah, go for it. It probably did.
Because I like the first one, and I'm trying to get by you.
Yeah. All right. Lifting it up a little bit more. And now we're just going to pull it up completely. So with this one, I'm going to leave like this. I'm not going to blow any of the paint out. I'm just going to kind of let it move out a little bit. And how I'm going to adjust the coloring or how the paint is showing up is I'm going to use a small spatula like this and move it out this way. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to do this. And see the difference in how it's moving. And how it's creating the different patternings and colors. So now that I've done this, and I've moved the paint around a little bit, now I'm going to pick this up and move it around. You see the different ways the colors have popped out differently in this one than I did in the other one. And it's literally just because I did a different technique. And that's the cool thing about doing these paint pours. You can use the exact same colors and get something completely different every single time based on the technique that you use when pouring the colors and when also spreading them. So I want a little bit more white in this. So I'm trying to make sure that this white is still popping through really nicely in the different areas. And you can tap the back of the canvas too if you want to kind of move the paint around a little bit more. And also shake it some to get it to move. And then voila. So with this one, I'm not going to use a straw to move it around or anything like that. I'm actually going to use a torch for this one. To pop the colors and stuff like that and to give those pop marks. So when you're using the torch, first things first, fire safety, okay? Straight up fire safety. Make sure that you are not going to catch anything on fire, including your painting, whenever you're using this, okay? Very, very important that you practice fire safety when using a torch of any sort. So I'm moving these cups underneath the canvas just a little bit more, okay? Now, one of the things that, like I said, that I love about using water as a medium is the ability to get different types of markings from it. So the heat will actually pop them out. I always light it first and then very lightly over it. A minute. Lift it up. You don't want to do it for too long in one spot because then you're going to catch things on fire. And this is what it's going to give you, those different cells within the painting itself. Now you can do this with this one over here too. And I'll go ahead and do that with this one. But I'm only going to do it in like certain parts. So I'm going to move this out of the way and I'm only going to do it through here. Now, what this will do for this one is it'll help set it a little bit more. But it'll also give it some cool pop effects in like little spots here and there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off, close it off. And I am going to actually flip the camera for you guys so you guys can see it in a different angle. And get a closer look. So this is what those different cell marks, that is from the heat. That is what it can do with water. See that? So when doing water, even if it's a little liquidy on the thing at first, it's going to give you these really, really cool cells. Now, some of these, like these two little white dots right there, those came up just because of the water itself. Now, looking at it on this side with the flow, there's a few pop marks. They're very, very small. See right there? The cells, super small. So the difference between using water and just plain flow is how many cells you're going to get or not get. And like I said, you can move things around, make it look different. So like I did that with this one right here, moving things around. This one I haven't yet, but I have these cell marks and stuff. So if I wanted to move them around, I 100% could. So let me do this real quick. You guys not understand. Use a different tool than I did last time to do cell marks or movement marks rather. So I have them in here. I do not. Oh, no. So I have different pieces that I use for, or different tools that I use for mandalas and stuff like that for doing dot work. So this is one of my dot work tools. Okay. So I'm going to use this to make some marks and move things around a little bit. So I'm going to use the smaller end right here. Let me take this black. Move it to the other side. Make them a little bit bigger. And you see the different effect that it's giving it? It's bringing more colors up from underneath as well. And it just kind of depends on what kind of feel you want to give this, if any at all, and how you want it to look. So I'm adding some marks over here where this white is with the red, just to kind of give it more texturing over here. You can see the little marks that it gives when doing it this way. So you can take, I'm using the smaller end of it. And it's just kind of moving it around. And I'm wiping this off each time. See? So just have fun with it. Your artwork is literally something you can have fun with. Do pretty much anything you want with it. Make little swirlies if you want. Make divots in different areas. And this is just going to kind of give it a little bit more life, if you will. And if you don't have one of these, another cool thing you can use, honestly, is a fork. You can use a fork to make little pop marks. You can use a fork to make little swirlies and different textures in it. So I'm going to grab a fork. I'm going to do that up here just to kind of give it a little bit more texture. So we just got like a little throwaway fork. Okay. A disposable fork, and we're going to use it in this area right here and give it some marks. And you see how it's moved that paint around a bit to give it a little bit more oomph. And you can take it and do it that way too. Okay. Now that I've done that and I've added these little pieces here, these little pop marks, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the torch to it again to kind of set that. Which is also going to give it more texturing, give it more cells. And now this one is done. So there we go. That's how you do paint pours with water and with flow.
Thank you, Sam.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions, by all means, ask. If you need help with something or anything like that, let me know. I'll be doing more and more of these different art classes, probably a little bit more often than just once a month. It just kind of depends on what's going on in my life.
Yeah,
So
I appreciate it. That helps a lot to learn. I can't
absolutely.
remember what I did.
Yeah, and once these dry and stuff like that, I will post them up so you guys can see them. And yeah,
Awesome.
I'll probably change them up a little bit here and there if I add detailing to it. Who knows? Yeah. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
All right. You guys have a fantastic day. This will be posted up on YouTube for those that needed to watch the replay or couldn't make it live. That way everybody else can see. And yeah, we'll figure out a different type of pour or some other fun art thing to do next time.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, babies.